The sun was setting over the small town of Brooklyn, Iowa. The last light of the day spilled across endless cornfields, painting the familiar, peaceful landscape. 20-year-old Mollie Tibbetts tied her shoelaces, put on her headphones, and took a deep breath before starting her usual evening run. After a day working at the summer camp with the kids, she felt relaxed. She had just texted her mother that she might stop by for dinner later, feeling excited at the thought. Mollie jogged along the quiet country road, lively music filling her ears. A gentle breeze brushed through her long black hair. But behind her, in the growing stretch of shadows, the headlights of a slow-moving car appeared. The engine rumbled, then fell silent. The car drifted forward and disappeared around a curve. Mollie glanced back. There was nothing but the empty road. She shrugged and kept running, reassuring herself that nothing was wrong. A few minutes later, the screech of brakes tore through the air behind her. Mollie stopped abruptly and removed her headphones. She barely had time to turn around before a dark figure lunged at her. A piercing scream echoed across the fields, then faded into nothing. Her phone fell to the roadside, the screen going black. Silence swallowed everything. Mollie Tibbetts vanished in an instant, marking the beginning of a horrifying tragedy. If you're watching this late at night, do you feel safe? Imagine this. It's an ordinary evening. You're taking a walk around your neighborhood, trying to maintain a harmless routine. But can you be certain that the very familiarity you trust isn't hiding danger? The case of Mollie Tibbetts forces us to ask, what happens when peace suddenly turns into a nightmare? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Your experience might help someone stay alert. And if you find this story useful, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. The next stories might carry lessons that, who knows, could one day save your life. Now, let's continue and uncover the shocking developments of this chilling case. Mollie Cecilia Tibbetts was born in 1998 and grew up in the small town of Brooklyn, so small that everyone knew each other. The kind of place where people left their doors unlocked because they believed nothing bad could ever happen there. Though her parents were divorced, Mollie was raised with plenty of love. She lived with her mother and two brothers, while her father worked in California, but stayed closely connected with his children. Friends described Mollie as kind, energetic, and always ready to help anyone who needed it. That summer, Mollie worked as a counselor at a local hospital's children's camp. Spending all day caring for and playing with kids said a lot about who she was: patient, warm, and full of life. At the same time, she was a psychology major at the University of Iowa, loved reading, and was especially passionate about Harry Potter. Running had been part of her life since high school, a place where she found balance and where she felt the safest. She had a strong relationship with her boyfriend, Dalton Jack. In the summer of 2018, Dalton was working out of town, and Mollie stayed behind to house sit and take care of his dog. They messaged each other every day, their love steady and full of trust. Her life was simple, peaceful, and filled with dreams for the future. But fate had something unbearably cruel waiting for her. The 18th of July 2018 began like any ordinary day. Mollie woke up, had breakfast with her family, then drove to the camp. She spent the whole day busy with the kids, left at 5 p.m., and then stopped by Dalton's house to water the plants and check on the dog. She sent Dalton a selfie through Snapchat. Everything was normal. There was no warning of what was about to happen. Around 7 p.m., Mollie changed into her running clothes: a pink sports bra, black shorts, and wireless earbuds. The summer evening was still bright, with a light breeze making each stride feel easier. Mollie started her usual route, feeling relaxed and at ease. But on that same road, someone else was moving too. An old black Chevrolet Malibu, with its distinctive chrome trim and modified side mirrors, appeared behind her. The driver, a local man, noticed the young woman running alone. He slowed down, watching the lively, smiling girl reflected in his rearview mirror. The man behind the wheel had a narrow, angular face, deep-set eyes, and an unsettling stillness. His gaze wasn't the fleeting glance of a passerby. It lingered far too long. Cold, focused, and tinged with something possessive. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles turning white. The way he watched Mollie made the quiet country road suddenly feel heavy, like a predator had just spotted its prey. Mollie didn't notice it at first, but when the car circled back a second time, moving unusually slow, she began to feel uneasy. Her heartbeat seemed to quicken on its own, warning her of danger lurking close by. She quickly removed one earbud to hear what was happening behind her, silently hoping she was just overthinking. But when the Malibu returned for the third time and started trailing her, Mollie knew she was in real danger. She picked up her pace, changed direction, trying to shake the car off. But the road that day was too empty. Only the wind, the cornfields, and that suspicious car. Around 7:45 p.m., a local woman named Christina drove by and saw Mollie running, looking completely fine. Sadly, that would be the last time anyone saw her safe. Just minutes after Christina left, the Malibu stopped. The driver stepped out and walked toward Mollie. She backed away immediately, raised her phone, and warned him that she would call the police if he came any closer. But the stranger continued approaching. Everything happened too fast. Mollie turned and ran, her breaths sharp and panicked, mixing with the wind across the fields. But he lunged forward, grabbed her. Mollie fought fiercely, screaming for help into the vast, empty space where no one could hear her. The struggle unfolded along the dusty roadside. Mollie's phone fell, its screen flashing once before going dark. And just like that small flicker of light vanished, the short but beautiful life of the young woman ended at that moment. In the chaos, Mollie fought until the last possible second, but eventually she was overpowered and dragged toward the car. Her small shoulders were shoved into the trunk, where darkness swallowed the last traces of resistance. He slammed the trunk shut, picked up her phone, powered it off, and tossed it into the grass. Then he jumped into the driver's seat, started the engine, and sped off into the night, leaving behind the empty road and the abandoned phone lying alone under the fading evening light. As darkness settled over the town, Mollie's family had no idea the worst had already happened. Her mother thought Mollie was just busy or had stopped somewhere for dinner. Dalton assumed she'd gone to bed early after her run. No one imagined that Mollie was in the hands of a dangerous man and that the time she had left was slipping away like sand through fingers. The next morning, July 19th, Mollie's silence became unusual. Mollie's cousin was the first to notice she wasn't replying to messages, something that hadn't happened in more than 600 consecutive days. Her mother called repeatedly, but all she heard was the cold, endless ringing. By noon, a mother's instinct turned worry into panic. She drove around searching for her daughter, Dalton's house, the camp, Mollie's running route, the hospital. No one had seen her. Mollie's car was still at Dalton's house, meaning she hadn't gone anywhere by car the night before. At 5:30 p.m., the family officially contacted the police. Fear spread across the small town. Poweshiek County authorities, along with the FBI, launched a massive search effort. Drones scanned hundreds of acres of cornfields, ATVs, K-9 units, boats, everything was deployed. Mollie's name was called out into the darkness, but no voice ever answered. The first thing investigators did was question Dalton boyfriends are always prime suspects in missing person cases. But Dalton had a solid alibi: phone data, hotel records, and coworker statements. He cooperated fully and was quickly ruled out. Social media, however, wasn't so forgiving. As Mollie's name spread across the United States, hundreds of anonymous accounts swarmed Dalton, scrutinizing his photos, monitoring his online activity, dissecting every Snapchat message. Some even accused him of pretending to be worried, despite zero evidence. Dalton, already shattered by his girlfriend's disappearance, now had to endure baseless accusations. It made the search even more suffocating for the family. Police reviewed known offenders in the area, rechecked past cases of harassment or stalking, but none were connected to Mollie. Accident theories didn't match the facts either. Everything slowly narrowed down to one possibility: Mollie had been abducted. Mollie's Fitbit data became a crucial clue. It showed a consistent running rhythm until about 8:28 p.m., when it suddenly stopped. 1 minute later, the device recorded movement at nearly 100 kilometers per hour, meaning she had to be in a car, Mollie's phone powered off completely at 8:53 p.m. in a rural area about 20 kilometers from Brooklyn. News spread nationwide. More than $300,000 in reward money was raised. Thousands of tips came in, hundreds of claimed sightings of Mollie, but every single one was false. A month passed. Mollie was still missing. Her family was nearly defeated, but in that darkest moment, a major breakthrough surfaced. In mid-August, investigators reviewed every security camera along Mollie's running route. No one expected that 4 small cameras mounted on a suburban garage would hold the most important footage. Mollie jogging past, and several seconds later, a black Chevrolet Malibu following behind. The car drove by at least 3 times within 20 minutes. The Malibu became the focus. In a small rural community, a car with modified mirrors wasn't common. Police quietly began checking local farms and garages. On August 16th, Officer Steve Kivy happened to see an identical Malibu driving in the opposite direction. He pulled it over. The driver was Cristian Bahena Rivera, 24, a dairy farm worker. Rivera claimed he was just out for a drive on the night of July 18th, denying any involvement. His calm demeanor led Kivy to let him go. But the information was logged immediately. Rivera became a person of interest. 3 days later, police summoned Rivera. His car was searched, and in the trunk, they found a small pink fabric fragment matching Mollie's running top. There was also a stain, suspected to be blood. Rivera was no longer calm. Investigators launched an interrogation that lasted 11 hours. At first, he denied everything, but when they showed him the footage of his car following behind Mollie, his face tightened. When they mentioned the evidence found in the trunk, sweat began to gather on his forehead. In the end, Rivera admitted that he had followed Mollie. When she warned him to stay back, he lost his temper. A struggle broke out. Rivera put Mollie in the car in a panic. He claimed he couldn't remember the details, only saying that Mollie was no longer responding after the altercation. Rivera also claimed he had a blackout during the struggle, a temporary loss of memory he used to explain why he allegedly couldn't recall what happened. The investigator stared straight at him, fully aware this was the kind of excuse suspects often use to avoid responsibility. But it also revealed something else. Rivera had never intended to be honest, not even once. Under Rivera's direction, police drove to a remote rural area where the cornfield stood taller than a grown man. On the 21st of August 2018, Rivera pointed toward the middle of the field and said, "She's in there." No one on the investigative team ever forgot that moment. Among the trampled stalks, they found the body of a young woman wearing the same pink and black running outfit seen on the security footage. It was Mollie Tibbetts, lying in that isolated place for more than a month without anyone knowing. The summer heat made the air inside the cornfield thick with the smell of decomposition. Flies hovered in small clusters. Mollie's clothes had faded from rain and sun, her hair matted from time. The cornstalks around her were bent and broken in unnatural curves, signs of a desperate struggle. One investigator later said the sight made his throat tighten, because Mollie was still wearing her running shoes, as if she had only left home the day before. The entire team stood in silence. Her belongings, running shoes, earbuds, bits of fabric were scattered nearby. The pattern of disturbances around the area proved this was where Rivera had dragged Mollie and concealed her body. The next day, the medical examiner ruled that Mollie had died from multiple sharp force injuries. The weapon was never found, but that no longer mattered. The truth was undeniable. Rivera was responsible for her death. After disposing of the body, Rivera returned to his life as if nothing had happened. He kept working at the dairy farm, chatting with co-workers, even pretending to be concerned about Mollie's disappearance like everyone else in town. His composure unsettled investigators. How could someone commit such a brutal act and then continue living as though it had nothing to do with him? That coldness revealed the distorted mentality and dangerous lack of control that hid behind Rivera's seemingly gentle exterior. Once Mollie's body was found, the case shifted into the legal phase. But bringing Rivera to trial didn't happen immediately. The process took nearly 3 years due to additional investigations and delays caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Mollie's family had to wait day after day, their grief stretched out in the cruelest way. In May 2021, at the Poweshiek County Courthouse, the trial of Christian Bahena Rivera officially began. He was charged with first-degree murder, the most serious offense under Iowa law. If convicted, he would face life in prison without the possibility of parole. Rivera entered the courtroom with a blank expression. He denied all accusations. His attorneys built an unusual narrative that 2 masked men had kidnapped and killed Mollie, then forced Rivera to help hide her body. It was an absurd defense, unsupported by any evidence. The story conveniently surfaced only after Rivera had already confessed to police and led them to the crime scene, a detail his lawyers tried to dismiss by claiming his initial statements were coerced. The prosecution quickly dismantled the defense's claims. They presented strong, consistent evidence: surveillance footage of Rivera's Malibu trailing Mollie, vehicle data, and most importantly, Mollie's DNA, found in the trunk of Rivera's car. Rivera had no explanation for why her DNA was there. And above all, the fact that he guided investigators to the body was inescapable. Mollie's family attended court every day. They sat quietly, listening to every detail about her final moments. Each time Mollie's photos were displayed, her mother would bow her head, gripping a relative's hand as if holding herself together. Her father looked toward Rivera, not with hatred, but with an indescribable sorrow. The trial lasted nearly 2 weeks, but the jury needed only a short time to reach a unanimous decision. On the 28th of May, 2021, they found Christian Bahena Rivera guilty of first-degree murder. His lies, his fabricated stories, everything collapsed under the weight of evidence. At the sentencing hearing in late August 2021, the judge delivered the final ruling. Rivera was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. He would die behind bars. As the sentence was read, Rivera sat motionless, showing no remorse, no tears. But his eyes darkened, as if he finally grasped that his freedom was gone forever. Meanwhile, the victim's family held each other and wept. Their 3-year agony had finally shifted into a small measure of relief. Justice had been served, but the loss could never be undone. However, the case did not end in the courtroom. It quickly became a flashpoint for political debate. Some politicians used Rivera's undocumented status as a rallying tool to call for stricter immigration controls. Even the U.S. president at the time mentioned the case as an example. But Mollie's family firmly rejected the politicization of her death. Her father stated that Mollie was kind and loving toward everyone, regardless of background or ethnicity. He insisted she would never want her death to be used as a symbol of division or hatred. The incident sent shockwaves through Iowa's Mexican and immigrant communities. Many feared being unfairly associated with Rivera simply because they shared his heritage. Some Hispanic women reported receiving suspicious or hostile looks from strangers in the days after the news broke. Families working at the farm where Rivera had been employed worried their entire community would be judged by one man's actions. The case of the young woman tragically became a double wound, one for her grieving family, and another for a community dragged into a storm they had no part in. The grace shown by Mollie's family moved many people. They chose to face their loss with compassion rather than hatred. To them, the most important thing was that Mollie be remembered for her kindness, her smile, and her warm heart, not for the actions of the man who stole her life. Mollie Tibbetts lost her life at just 20 years old, a time when her future should have been wide open. But the legacy she left behind was not fear or suspicion. Her friends organized memorial runs called Miles for Mollie, both to honor her memory and to remind the community about personal safety. On social media, the Mollie's Kindness movement began, encouraging people to help one another in small but meaningful ways, just as Mollie had done. Her story reminds us that danger doesn't always come from far away. Sometimes it appears in the very places we think are safe. A familiar running route, a neighborhood we've walked hundreds of times, a routine we believe is harmless. That's why awareness doesn't mean living in fear. It means protecting ourselves intelligently, letting someone know where we're going, paying attention to our surroundings, trusting our instincts when something feels off. Mollie's case also reminds us that a dangerous person doesn't always look dangerous. Rivera was a hardworking farm laborer with no criminal record, described by coworkers as quiet and polite. But that didn't stop him from making a brutal choice in a single, reckless moment. Evil can sometimes be just one decision away. Although Mollie is gone, her story has changed how many people think about personal safety. And above all, her family has taught the world another lesson. Even in the greatest pain, kindness can still be the answer. Mollie Tibbetts is not remembered as the victim of a murderer, but as a young woman who radiated love, hope, and kindness. Her death is a reminder of how fragile life is and how human connection is something worth protecting. A small town like Brooklyn, Iowa, seemed like the definition of safety. Doors left unlocked, children playing outside without fear, neighbors greeting each other every morning. Yet in that peaceful place, Mollie crossed paths with a man she had never met, never spoken to, and had no personal conflict with. In the single moment Rivera laid eyes on her during her run, Mollie's future was cut short. This case highlights something many people overlook. Stalking, following, or harassing women is not a minor issue. For offenders, a split second of impulse can escalate into violence. When Mollie turned to warn Rivera, she would call the police. It pushed him past his fragile threshold. In a moment of panic at the thought of being caught, combined with a twisted need for control, he chose violence instead of stopping. Just a few chaotic minutes on a deserted road forever decided the fate of a young woman. The impact went far beyond Mollie's family, friends, or local residents. The case shook the entire country and sparked widespread conversations about women's safety. Many women shared that they had experienced similar moments. A strange car following them, a man staring while they walked or ran alone, or a creeping feeling when passing through an empty street. Experiences they often dismissed as anxiety or imagination. But Mollie's story made them realize that instincts are sometimes more accurate than they think. At Mollie's memorial events, her friends emphasized that she wasn't reckless or careless. She always told her family where she was going, ran the same route, and paid attention to her surroundings. But sometimes, a single moment, a deserted road, a stranger's sudden presence, is enough to shatter everything. What stunned the community even more was Rivera's image before the crime. A seemingly ordinary farm worker, quiet, diligent, with no criminal history and no known conflicts. He was not the suspicious type people imagine when they think of criminals. That made the case even more unsettling. If someone like him could commit such a brutal act, then who else might be capable? That fear woke many people up to the reality that danger cannot be judged by appearance or background. After the trial, Mollie's family did not call for hatred. They didn't demand harsher punishment or wish for the case to become fuel for division. They chose compassion and clarity. Mollie's father repeatedly emphasized that his daughter would want people to treat each other with kindness, not use her name to attack a community or any group. To him, Mollie was a light, not a weapon for hostility. The memorial runs, Miles for Mollie, gradually became an annual tradition. Hundreds of people join each year, following the same path she used to run, as a way of saying that Mollie still lingers somewhere between the breeze and the green cornfields. Many who visit Brooklyn for the first time say Mollie's story makes the town feel both more beautiful and more sorrowful. Yet there is something powerful about walking those paths and remembering her. Several women's organizations also use the case to call for change, encouraging people to learn basic self-defense, increase awareness of risky situations, and make it a habit to share their location when running or walking alone, not to live in fear, but to add one more layer of protection for themselves. Mollie Tibbetts is no longer just the name of a victim on the news. She has become a symbol of kindness and the strength of youth. The stories her friends share about her all revolve around one thing. Mollie made people feel valued. She listened, she helped, she cared, and she did everything with a genuine heart. It's heartbreaking that someone like her left the world so early, but it's precisely because she lived with such goodness that people remember her with love rather than only with tragedy. What keeps Mollie's story alive is not just grief, but the quiet lessons it leaves behind. Lessons about trusting your intuition, about protecting yourself, about noticing the smallest things around you, about understanding that sometimes evil doesn't hide in obvious shadows. It can live inside an ordinary person we never think twice about. And more importantly, Mollie's story reminds us of the value of kindness. Her family transformed their grief into acts of compassion, ensuring her name is remembered through the qualities she embodied when she was alive: gentleness, humanity, and empathy. Many people find comfort in that, knowing that even when life delivers its cruelest moments, humans can still choose to respond with understanding and compassion. To many, Mollie Tibbetts has become a symbol of beautiful youth. To her family, she is forever the daughter with the radiant smile. To her friends, she is the one who always brought warmth. And to the entire country, she is a quiet reminder of vigilance, of valuing personal safety, and of kindness, even amidst seemingly unbearable tragedy. When this story ends, you might think of Mollie the next time you walk alone on an empty street, or when your intuition warns you that something isn't right. But the most important thing isn't just vigilance. The more important lesson is remembering that even in the darkest moments, kindness can still be the final light. Mollie Tibbetts never returned from her run that day, but her life, her character, and the values she carried have stretched far beyond the small road where the tragedy began. And somewhere in the world, every memorial run in her honor, every act of kindness done in her name, helps keep her story alive, not as a tragedy, but as a gentle reminder that goodness still exists, even when the world feels at its darkest.